He looked like he got into a fight with a fucking alley cat.
That's how I feel too. It's not just a visual. It's a tactile feeling too.
So real. So fucking real. I had a call with like an important guy 20 minutes ago.
Mm.
And I like went to my closet to change and I was like, nah, it's black hoodie mode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Dude, we gotta go to Ireland.
It must be done. I think we need to do all together just like a quick little tour,
Yeah.
if at all possible. I kind of want to. I mean, we've talked about this in many different regards, right? We've got Connor that's coming um, stateside in November, and I know that he's trying to hit a multitude of little destinations. I know we've talked about hitting Nashville and having like a little reunion episode for all of the fun and fairy friends that we've made over the course of the last 12 to 18 months. But a little Europa
Yeah.
road trip, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
settling
Yeah.
into certain, right? It's like it could
You know?
be majestic,
Here's the
to
thing.
say the very least.
I was planning on doing a little UK expedition like February, like week Ireland, week London,
Yep.
2 weeks Scotland. However, Connor has been proposing the true Euro Spring experience, and I don't know, you know, because like in
Paint
my
the
head,
picture.
obviously, if you say like picture yourself like relaxed,
Yeah.
it's like a brick walled pub in Ireland, you know, like it's not
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
beach. However, can you deny the little, you know, Natalia fucking
Yeah.
you know, that would be so
Yeah.
good for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
A
a little
little
tan.
linen. You know, some
Yeah.
linen in
Yeah.
the
That's the
system.
thing. Like if we take like a month vacation and come back more pale than when we left, it's like
Yeah. Because we spent most of the time like working out of Panera Breads, you know, inside in the boots. That would be truly
dude,
retarded, but
one of my
yeah,
favorite I mean, it says so much about the fact that some of my favorite experiences in San Diego were inside an Irish pub. But
real.
when there was the two times. There was the one time where we all went to the Princess pub, um, like the whole crew, and I was like ordering for that was fucking like that was so great seeing these like these various people, many of which have like, you know, relatively acquired palates. Like it's not like everybody's fucking chicken fingers guy, you know,
Mm.
especially like someone like Jake, and just being like, what is a Cornish pass? Like, what are we in? Just feeling the boys fired up. And then obviously the first time we went to the field and just like fully, oh man, it felt so good. It felt so good for like, you know, and for you to understand. Oh
Yeah.
man, it felt so. Dude, there's no better feeling on earth than being like, brother, you just gotta trust me on this one, and then
Yes,
it like
yes.
works, man.
True. Real. It completely changed my relationship with beer.
Mm-hmm.
Like me passenger princessing to you in the Princess pub and the field allowed, yeah, I opened an entirely um, new vertical of experiences
Because it's
through.
a category of
Yeah,
its own, you know, like having a
yeah,
Guinness, because like you associate it with this certain level of like relief, but it's a specific type of relief, because like if you crushing beers is like not a relief. That's normally a celebratory thing. You're at a game, or you know, you're at a beach and you're drinking Pacificos, or you're just, you know, down in the dumps, and then having like cocktails or like having like a nice drink. A Guinness is just it's its own category of ah
it is. It is.
so
It
good.
is.
Have you ever been to the
It's a
UK?
genre. No, I haven't, and it's a definitely a very unique aesthetic and subculture out there. Very distinctly, I think a lot of people almost kind of don't appreciate how similar it is to just general Northern European
Mm-hmm.
Scandinavian culture.
Mm-hmm.
There is like that kind of like Northern Hemisphere island um, culture that is distinct from like continental Europe, and you see that in
Mm-hmm.
like the pies
Yeah. Yeah.
and the clouds
Yeah.
and the guitars
Yeah. UK culture
and
is
all that.
very, very, it's very un-American. I think that's probably the biggest misconception people have about it, is
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just so un-American. It's different, man. It's very like, and especially Scotland, because I mean Britain's fucked, unfortunately. And Ireland's on its way out. It's different. It's harder to find pockets there. The thing about Scotland is you still have like relatively major metropolitan hubs that haven't been set on fire yet. Where like you can find plenty of incredible places in Ireland where like Irish people still are, but it's not going to be Dublin, and like
Yeah.
London is fucked. Whereas Scotland, it's like good luck walking into Glasgow and trying to fucking like that's just not happening. But the culture there is so it's just so unique, man. It's almost closer to like a traditional like mobster Italian culture
Mm,
where like the thing I always say about Irish pubs, the unique thing about Irish pubs, and as you experienced, um, is synonymous with an Irish pub in anywhere. The fact that it was the same in downtown San Diego that it would be in Ireland is that they're self-governing and self-policing. Like you, no shit never happens at an
mhm,
Irish pub because everybody's always kind of watching. Like if you there's like 35 drunk assholes, but if you're the 36th drunk asshole and you're like just too much of an asshole, like 35 drunk assholes will beat the shit out of you and just like kick you
yeah,
out. It's so
yeah.
it's and
You're
so
hanging
that
out with a bunch of white blood cells.
yeah, yeah. And that culture is everywhere over there. You can knock on anybody's door and they'll always but it's not like what you would expect a Canadian culture to be, which is like so welcoming and friendly and inviting because there's a level of like passiveness with that where there's like that politeness but that lack of confrontation where the UK, especially the Scots, are so welcoming but are so confrontational. And so there's that dichotomy, it's not like we're a Canadian is like it seems very welcoming because we're too polite to say no, and so we're always
Mm,
gonna help you out. Whereas UK, they'll tell you to get fucked unless you actually need help, and then they'll tell the other guy to get fucked.
mm,
It's
real.
interesting, man. It's also the UK is pretty like unevolved. That's not the right word to say, but like you will not find new houses built. The
Mm,
houses are very small. The average UK person lives, but like just the average middle class UK citizen lives in a. There, most of them are in semis. Like most of them are in like split townhouses.
mm,
It's not super common to find like like you have your own yard.
mm.
And people just live below their means. All the cars are really small. They're all manual cars. You don't get automatic cars in the UK. Um, they're all diesel cars. Like it's just very. There's nowhere in the UK that looks like Texas.
Mm.
That very like no basement, mini mansion, shitty drywall. Like that, it just looks like shit. It's like 600
Yeah.
grand for an 8 bedroom house, but it looks
Yep.
like you could fucking run through the wall into the kitchen.
Yeah.
Very, very
No,
different.
the wasp um sort of predisposition and the Anglican spirit is definitely a very unique cut of the cloth of
Yeah,
the overall kind of human consciousness. And some of the things that it's interesting that this was like the topic that we immediately gravitated towards as soon as we hopped on the call together. because of some of the things that have been stirring over there
Yeah.
sociopolitically. And right before I got on this call, I was waiting for you to get off the previous call that you were on, and I was just kind of like mindlessly looking through some accounts on Twitter, and they were all talking about just like the the kinetic energy that's just like
Mm-hmm.
bubbling up
Mm-hmm.
in the UK, particularly right now, in such a way that I think a lot of people outside of our sphere are going to be kind of shocked with
Yes.
what eventually ends up um materializing over there, what eventually ends
Mm-hmm.
up coming to fruition. But if you do really appreciate and study the Britain swamp people out there, you know that they've got like a certain little
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
edge to them that when the time comes, it's like it unlocks a completely different echelon
Yeah.
of what we're used to seeing in our day and age, which is very, very exciting, I think,
It
for us
is.
because so
Yeah.
much of our conversations sort of like revolve around these macro, um, both pop culture, but also
Mm-hmm.
kind of like day to day domestic culture living experiences that we all navigate within our lives. And a lot of those things we just kind of like take for granted are
Yeah.
inherited from uh Anglican sensibilities that when they start like innovating and operating at their like bleeding
Uh-huh.
edge and their cutting edge again,
Uh-huh.
it's like, you know, like like they gave you the Beatles, like what's next, like from the producers, that like the whatever the next iteration of something like that
Yeah.
is gonna
It's like their
be.
last 4 TV shows sucked, but they made The
Yeah.
Wire, so like the
Yes.
fifth one must be
And
great.
it's like what the next
Yeah.
thing that ends up
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that is what's kind of exciting to think about, um historiographically and culturally whenever
It is, man.
just like that region gets brought up in general. So
Yeah,
for
I
us
think
personally, it will be exciting,
yes.
I think. If, like,
Yes.
yeah, we got to do it. We just have
We
to
got to
like
do it.
go actually put our eyes and ears out
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
Ireland, UK,
Yeah.
and experience all of the little regions and
100%.
idiosyncrasies that come with that place.
Yep. I think something people really miss about the UK culture, and it's so interesting from my perspective being like half Scottish, half Canadian. What Americans think is happening in the UK is actually what's happening in Canada, where there is a significant, and this is like macro, like widespread, there is a significantly less density of virtue signaling over there, where
Mm,
the divide is much more clear. So like everyone sees the headlines about British soldiers arresting like kids for what they post on like social media, right? Or like introducing these like crazy hate crime. It's very like dystopian. Like that's kind of the American idea of what's happening in the UK right now, is like this extremely oppressive, like super ultra mega woke. And
yes.
the thing about the UK is like there's a way less of that middle ground than in the States. The thing about the States is that most people are kind of just like okay with it and like can't really be bothered to do anything.
Right.
Where that's where like this widespread delusion comes from. That's where this like limbo comes from that we always talk about. That it's not that most people agree with the craziness that's happening. It's that they're just like, yeah, sure, I'd love to see New York socialist. Like that's yay, right? Whereas in the UK, it's like there is this small, loud minority that is not virtue signaling. They genuinely are ultra on that side. And then the rest are against that. And there's very few people in the middle that are like kind of agnostic, and they're like, they, vote this way. But whereas in Canada, it is significantly more oppressive, more extreme in that direction than the States. However, we have that similar culture of like, yes, that is true, and we agree with that. And so I think that's what's going to be interesting about like what bubbles up in the UK specifically is there's just there's not going to be what you'll never see in the UK are these clips of like protests, where they're like holding a sign and the guy goes up to them is like, "Do you know what your sign means?" And they're like, "Not really, but we're
Yeah,
fighting for it anyways." Like that doesn't happen in the UK. They're either like, "Yes, I do, and I agree with this," or like, "I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, son."
real, real. They're in a lot of ways. I don't know if they're readily willing to admit this, but they're kind of Japanese, like in a really bizarre way, in a way that like Darwinian island demographics evolve,
Yeah.
sort of like separate from
Yes.
any other kind of like major region, and
Yeah, like
it
80s music becomes popular in like 2019.
exactly, and it ends up like being so kind of like uncanny and bizarre and eccentric, but endearing, and
Right.
ultimately innovative, and very much so on the forefront of what pushes the human condition forward. I just don't think that a lot of people anticipated, probably, um, in this day and age, that we would get to a point where there would potentially be, like color revolutions
Mm-hmm.
or um, civil wars in regions like that,
Mm-hmm.
because we think of them as being so well put together and stable and sophisticated and
And
like
homogenous, right? Like they're all kind of
yeah,
the same.
yes, and like they've already reached their final form and they're just going to
Right.
be kind of like that forever. But
Like a Norway. It's like Norway's not changing, like,
ever, yeah,
yeah.
like they've solved their puzzle and now they're just going to
Right.
be like that for until the end of time. But when you look at just certain periods of human history and the shifts that take place
Yeah.
at that social and that cultural level, um yeah, like it just like buck wild things just sort of like happen in
Yeah.
like buck
I
wild
mean,
places.
dude, Japan just undid like 6 years
Yeah,
of straying off the path in 72 hours.
yeah,
Dude,
talk
there
about the
was,
rumble strip.
yeah, there was one attack on a civilian in Japan from an illegal immigrant. And they just went and found the most fucking, like,
Yeah,
they call her like the Iron Lady, and they
yeah,
just fucking marched her in.
it's like a
And Trump
mosquito
started making,
enters the house and then they like pull out like an AR-15 to like to kill it, It's like, no, we're not even gonna swat this. we're gonna we're gonna red dot this thing. Like,
dude, Japan just gifted 250 cherry blossom trees to Washington.
I saw that, yeah. That feels
Based,
like
fucking
something out of
awesome.
like yeah, Civilization 3 like
Yeah.
cutscene
Or like a
cinematic,
Studio
like
Ghibli movie.
yeah, it just, but that's good. Like
Yeah.
it feels nice to have things of earnest sentimentality
Yes.
like that again.
Would you see Trump got gifted the putter that what's his
Yeah.
name used?
Yep. The previous the prime minister, and
Yeah.
that they
Fucking
were like a
dude.
personal belonging of his.
what a world. That's why Connor had a fucking, first off, Connor's had like 4 back-to-back bangers of just like true radicalization. It's fantastic to see. But he had a banger about like the aesthetics of this like Trump Japan trip. Like it's been fucking awesome. Like, do you like the
Yeah,
merch that he's been dropping? Like, and the photography that's coming out, and the video of him like fucking Iron Man like lowering down on the stage with these fucking jet. Like it's crazy. It's such a. I would love to have Connor come on one of these and talk about that, because I think we both have a unique respect for Connor specifically, but that archetype of Connor we talk about, who's like a true 1%er in their domain, where if you truly, truly, truly are at that skill level where you have such a fundamental understanding of it, it's such a philosophy based, psychology based, scientific based understanding that it molds your worldview. Like my worldview is molded through direct response marketing. Everything I see is through this lens of marketing,
right.
because I have such a deep understanding of like consumer psychology and memetics and like second and third layer effects of this person is saying that they're buying, the skincare cream, but they actually want clearer skin, but they actually want to like show up to their friends like bridal shower and like have better skin than everybody, but they actually want to like make their and so with Connor, his analysis of this like crazy socio-political event of this like Japan kind of like saga these last 3 days, um seeing it through a lens of a designer and just like a true aesthetics expert is hyper accurate and real and very articulate and very, it's there's almost this weird paradoxical dichotomy where instead of trying to just look at it from this like unbiased perspective, if you look at it through a sniper scope, you can almost see like the bigger picture even clearer. Like
Yeah,
I would much rather trust Connor's opinion on what's happening, which is just talking about like the visual aesthetics of it, than I would like an actual like political science major who's like really theory based and is understanding everything, because it's like
right.
you don't have that depth. Like yours is so surface level. Yours is through the lens of how you're going to get good grades on your essay, where
Yeah,
Connor doesn't have a fucking, bone in the fight. Like it's just
right.
genuine. It's so interesting.
I wish that this was something that we could get across in a more articulate and eloquent way. And
Mm,
maybe this part that we're touching upon now is kind of like the golden flake out of um the full rough of like what this podcast ends up being
mm,
for our sake. But you had a banger of a tweet recently. It was just one of the most like recent one or two or three that you posted, and it talked about the Pareto principle. I don't
mm-hmm.
know if you're in front of your profile right now.
I'm not.
It was something about how and the Pareto principle is like the 20% inputs that produce like the 80%
Correct.
outputs. What was the tweet that you had that
I'll
touched
pull it
on
up.
that?
How
And,
recent? Like this week?
no, it was literally like I think actually earlier today.
Mm.
And I was just sifting through some of the stuff that you were putting out there before we hopped on the call. But it's timely. It's relevant
Yeah.
to
Oh,
all of the
yeah. It
things that we're
was.
talking about.
Yeah. So I said the 80-20 rule can sometimes be backwards. This is what info specifically, where the top 20% of the students take up 80% of time and resources, which is not inherently a bad thing, can be a good thing, but something most people overlook and should be brought to the forefront. So this idea that, um, like the core thesis of that was that is a fundamental imbalance. And
Right.
so I think something that gets overlooked with that 80-20 principle is like well, work on 20% of the inputs that produce 80% of the outputs. It's like, well, that's an inefficient business. That like
Yes.
that's not
Yes.
how it
Yeah.
should
Oh,
work.
okay. Yes. So this is where it is, right? And this is where I wish we would be able to get this more across, and maybe this is something that we can kind of extrapolate a little bit further down the road, both in our respective journeys and the thing that we're building out with the Alchemists as a whole. But this idea of the Pareto principle has become a very commonplace heuristic
Mm-hmm.
and rule of thumb that we all reference in this contemporary day and age, right? Like the 20% of inputs that produce the 80% of outputs. And there is this fixation on stick to the basics, the
Yeah.
fundamentals, the
Uh-huh.
essentials, the foundation. And it's all very, very, very true. To your
Mm-hmm.
point, you speaking from the direct marketer's experience and the copy domain, when you kind of develop that lens, there are just certain pillars and foundations and concepts that are central cardinal themes and principles
Mm-hmm.
that define just how that whole kind of like art and science function. And I think where it is really is that Pareto principle is that 20% that produces the 80% is the science. That is the
Yeah.
science. That is the
Right.
science. That is where it's like 2 + 2 = 4.
Right.
And that is where you can pin things down very quantitatively, tangibly, empirically, and produce predictable outcomes
Yeah.
from predictable inputs that you can control. But the really exciting and interesting and fascinating stuff that really pushes us in that existential human condition sense is the 80%
Yes.
inputs
Because that's the
that
art.
produce. That's the art.
The
The
20%'s the science, the 80%'s the art.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that is where you're dealing with like the margins, the devil in
Yes.
the details,
Yes.
the things that you can't articulate, that you can't
Yes.
explain, that become intuition, that become intrinsic, that become
Yes.
secondhand nature, that become intertwined with your DNA, that feel like they are a blossoming of some sort of epigenetic expression that
Yes.
you uniquely possess. And those are the things that I think so much of like our online space is just trying to get so many kids from like that 0 to 1, just like don't quit in the
Yes.
first 90 days. Don't,
Right. Right.
like
Module
your,
1 of how to start a
yeah,
dropshipping course is
exactly.
mindset.
Yeah. 90% get filtered
Yeah.
and like your first or your second year. But like the real beauty and like the art and like the sophistication and kind of like the connoisseurism of it all
Yeah.
really exists from like year 2 all the way through like year 80
Yeah.
in ways that we think have everything's already kind of like been
Yes.
done, and that's not
Yes.
true.
Yes.
There are
Fucking fully
things,
agree.
you know what I mean? And you and I
Yeah.
have talked about this as well. Like there are things that in your commitment to the craft and to the art, you will produce things in your lifetime that will inspire textbooks of future
Yes. Well,
institutions.
here's the problem is innovation is found in the 80%. So
Yes.
Steve Jobs was focusing on the 80%. The problem is new Apple, or like recent times Apple, is so focused on the 20% on the scientific model that we're on iPhone fucking 17 Pro and it looks the exact fucking same.
Yeah.
Whereas what's a good example? A Tarantino is like, when you get so good at that 20%, the typical artist's trope is you get so good at the 20%, you're able to break the rules and
Exactly.
reinvent the rules. And that's an 80%, right? And so like when you think of this, like we talk about Richard Feynman a lot, right? It's like Feynman wasn't focused on the 20%. He was He understood it so well. He understood the 20%, that was his entire principle. The entire principle was the 80%, right? Or like,
Mm-hmm.
here's another great
Mm-hmm.
example. And this is something I we need to talk a lot about, and like allocate time, because I agree. I think it's going to be a really important like box to unlock. Is this like, where have all the Renaissance men gone?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember when I was like, I don't know, 18, 19, and I was really looking at Da Vinci, and it's like, okay, so Da Vinci gets the 20%, and I think Da Vinci's 20% was human anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
First,
Mm-hmm.
hyper realistic painting, some of the most beautiful painting of all time, was the first one to ever illustrate a anatomically correct fetus in the womb ever. He got so good at understanding anatomy that he started trying to fly. Like, he was such a great painter that he was like building flying machines. He was such a great painter. He was building some of the greatest war machines. Dude, he built tanks.
Tanks. Yeah.
Like,
Helicopters.
yeah.
The
Eh, eh,
very first like prototypes of what
yes.
eventually those modern inventions would
Yes.
be. Yeah.
Like, that doesn't come from him continuing to become a better painter. It comes from getting so good at that 20%, truly mastering that 20%, that, and this is exactly what we're talking about with Connor. Connor is this perfect
Mm-hmm.
example of,
Mm-hmm.
like, you get
Mm-hmm.
so good at design that you can become a fucking politician. Like,
Exactly.
that's a Renaissance man.
In
Like,
unpredictable ways.
yes,
How like that.
because you have, because when you truly understand the nucleus of something, when you truly understand something, you have true understanding. Like, that's the Feynman principle. And that's when I say, like, I would rather a fucking designer be in charge of like $1 trillion like foreign affairs policy. Like, I'm not being facetious. That's how everything great was invented. That's how, like, that was the Da Vinci's of everything. That was all like the Renaissance men. That was the fucking Beethovens. Like, the best people in the true Renaissance men, like the top 1% that we haven't had in a long time. I mean, Lincoln was a lawyer, like the
Mm,
true top 1% that we haven't had in a long time. I mean, Elon's this perfect example. He was making fucking flamethrowers, man,
right, right,
and then
right.
built electric cars, and then built like the world's biggest tunnel digger, and then was like, let's go to Mars, and then landed a rocket ship. It came back. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Palmer Luckey, another great example of this. John McAfee, another great example of this. Like, this true you need. It's almost like the thing that you're an expert in matters less than the depth of the expertise that you have in that thing.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
Greek philosophers, Roman philosophers, like, their thing wasn't philosophy. And not even to get to like a Marcus Aurelius type, but like some of the greats, like, they were astronomers. They were
Right.
mathematicians.
Yes.
That's where the philosophy, some of the greatest philosophers of all time, understood math and geography,
Yeah.
and like, that's where the art, we talk about Egypt all the time. Like, there's some really great theories out there. I mean, like, how like the Pyramid of Giza is like true north, like more true north to the, like, or how they say, like, you can't stick a razor blade between the bricks in the pyramids. Like,
Mm, mm.
that's where the art comes from, and that's where some of the greatest civilizations of all time came from, and that's where that's where religion came from. Like, it was this true, King
Yeah.
Solomon. Like, there's so many, and I think that's what we're missing, and it's
Yes.
something that it's a core tenet of my. I was saying I was on a call with this guy like an hour ago, a very successful entrepreneur, very well known in this space, and he wanted to just pick my brain on um info and marketing and stuff. And I'm not good at receiving compliments. I am good at receiving compliments when they compliment like my depth of knowledge, because I'm not good at receiving compliments when people, it feels like it's like out of my control. But when someone like him is like, I just want you to know I've talked to literally every single person in the space, and you're one of the most knowledgeable guys, especially for your age. I'm like, thank you. Yeah, like, I've dedicated 4 years of my life just to this one, just to this one thing. And because I'm able to understand that, I'm able to get on a call with a software founder and have zero clue about software and throw them really great business ideas. Or
And
I'm
find the
able to,
connections. Yeah. Yep.
because of that depth of knowledge. And I'm by no means saying, I mean, I'm only 4 years into that. I'm not by no means saying I'm like at that level of some of the people we're talking about, but pursuit of mastery, like that's what's missing. And it's a masculine thing, and it's biblical. It's almost Darwinistic. Like it's a core tenet. And I say this all the time, and we talk about this all the time. I forget if it was a tweet or a newsletter or something. And I really want to revisit this idea. You and I were having a lot of really interesting conversation about flow state, and you were on a very, very interesting path that I think you will pick back up when the time comes, about like being able to unlock flow state through breath and through compounds and through like different things. Like if it's a state,
physiological and
right?
parasympathetic
Yes,
systems.
which
Yep.
is
Yep.
like it's that, and that's a belief that I share. Like one of my beliefs is if you can access something through exogenous things, you're able to access internally, and that's why I'm
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
against psychedelics, etc.
Right.
That point being, I think that one of the prerequisites to flow state, and what we're talking about is kind of this like a prolonged flow state. So not that you just have it for like 40 minutes a day, but you're able to like really tap into it, almost like a state of enlightenment.
Yes.
I think it comes from mastery. And I think if you it's like I always say, like learning a new language like turns on a part of your brain that's never turned on. For
Yep.
me, training martial arts, when I started training martial arts, it was like that was a brand new like that center of my, which would have been unlocked through dancing, or which would have been unlocked through like all these things, just this like
Yeah.
kinetic, right?
Kinetic. Yep.
Yeah,
Kinesiological. Yep.
I think true pursuit of mastery, like that part of your brain doesn't unlock until year 3. Like there's this part of your brain that is reserved for the 80%. It's reserved for when you get that 20%, we click this on. And for me personally, and speaking with the Connors and some of these people who are also on pursuit of mastery that have unlocked this like flow state, a common sentiment that we all share is your pattern recognition just clicks on. And for me, it was year 3. Everybody was like this kind of year 3 thing. You see a common trope in our business world. Year 3 is when everybody goes from like the 20K a month to the 100K a month. Something just turns on, and it's because Dan Coe has a fantastic framework for this, where he says like if you have a mission, that mission becomes the lens that you view everything from. And so if you're just building the software, you can go read How to Get Rich by Felix Dennis, and just because he's talking about a publishing company, like you're picking up cues for your software company, yeah, like your brain doesn't turn on fully, and like your subconscious, as we know, what is it, like 98% of our brain is like always just fucking off, like you can't even, and sometimes it clicks back on, like you activate more of it. And I think I like like I think that's the lost technology for the pyramids. Like I think that's the lost technology for this like lack of like spirituality, the secular society. It's like I think it's scientific, and all great scientific things are spiritual, right? I think like there's really something, everybody,
Yes.
99% of people are
Yes.
just they're basically drugged up. They're basically
Yes.
capping their energy output.
Yes. 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 So that is the thing that is super, super exciting, because so much of what we see on the platforms today is just literally getting people kind of like through the door.
Yeah.
And all of the things that we're talking about now that are inexplicable and yet at the same time inexorable. It's like, if you can just last long enough to get to that point where left brain shuts off and like right brain activates from the launch pad that left brain has been able to set up for you, you are now operating in the actual divinity of
Yes.
what like the human condition is capable of
Yes.
achieving. And that stuff is where, and I was thinking about this, it's incredible how many different ways like you touch like the same idea and concept like through the outskirts. I was thinking about like how there's that really famous quote, unfortunately attributed to Vladimir Lenin, that was like, there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen. And there's a Ernest Hemingway quote from one of his novels where it was something like first gradually and then suddenly.
Mm.
And it's this idea of like the logarithmic output, the
Hmm.
exponential growth, right? It's like things are like this for a really long
Yeah.
time until suddenly,
Yeah.
right? Like the bamboo
Yeah.
shoot analogy. And that is the thing that you really want to impress upon people, because it's like that is where like the pure like joy and bliss and like play
Yeah.
all ends up kind of happening. To your point, what exactly what you had just said earlier, when you've like dedicated yourself 4 years into one specific domain, the thing that you become as a result of that is like uh you know you
Yeah.
know
You just
like
ascend
yeah,
past.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like
It's an evolution.
yeah,
And you
yes,
can't go backwards.
no,
You can never return. It's like you really burn those bridges. You were like fucking right, you were circling it, and I could see you trying to ground it. And I think I'll ground it for you a bit previous in this conversation about how you can really see this illustrated in our business world, and especially this world of like the blind leading the blind, but really just
yeah,
like any form of like mentor mentee, which is like primarily what most of the business operates in, where like it's in these people's best interest to keep selling to that 0 to 1, because
yes,
that's where that new money is. And by not allowing them to progress, like we want to keep you here. Like I don't want to sell a how to make money with an agency course and then have you make money with an agency and then make so much money that 3 years later you like sunset it and then go work on like go roll that money into your dream project. Because 10K a month's nothing, dude. You should be at 100K a month. You should be at 500K a month. Like they want
right,
to
right,
fucking
right,
keep them here. And so you get all these guys who think like the pinnacle of the world is like 250K a month in their social media marketing agency, which is like,
mm,
no, that's the 20%.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And so,
that's still the system.
yeah, exactly. You're not leaving. And it's something I talk about too. And I think we talked about this on this last call. Um, because I think in order to have these, like this conversation is great, but what does it change? Like it changes boots on the ground, which means it changes pretty like pragmatically. It changes pretty like raw and real. It doesn't look pretty. It's just shit. I think a like concrete, tangible way that I want to change that is something I say all the time, which is just like if you don't have a product in your offer suite that you can charge someone 100 grand for, that's you're not good enough. Like you had a fucking fantastic point on our last call. We were saying like almost this Shutter Island experience where you're taking someone from like 0 to 100, and that's kind of what it's like. Once you hit the 100K in the month in the agency, it's like, what's next, dude? Like the world, and like, why wouldn't you just be able to cultivate that? Why wouldn't you just and because to get to that next point, it needs to be so collaborative, it needs to be so childlike, it needs to be so artistic and creative and curiosity driven. Like that's where life happens, dude.
Mm,
Life doesn't happen with an extra zero in your agency. Like that's just
yes,
not a thing.
yes, yes, yes.
But you
And
need to get there. You need to do the
you need to
20%
get there, yeah,
first.
and you just don't see that sort of thing like talked about at
No.
all, right? It feels like if you were to talk about it, you would come off, schizophrenic, that you'd be like talking over
Right.
people's heads. But I think if you could genuinely position it correctly, where it's like, you're just literally convincing someone like, I want to take you so far into the
Yeah.
deep end that
Yeah.
like there is no way back.
Yeah.
And once you're there, like there's a beautiful metaphor in there where it's like every kid that learns how to ride a bike with their dad, your dad is like running alongside you
Mhm.
and he's holding you, and there's a point where you go a certain distance where you realize like it was you actually kind of like pedaling all along, and your dad
Yeah.
let you go like a long
Yeah.
time ago, you know? And there's a way to kind of articulate that sort of
Yes.
ambition where so many people are so fixated on reaching, to your point, a metric, a number, a particular position or status, or uh uh, uh, a feeling of clout within like an existing hierarchy, and you want to get them to the point where it's like they're churning and burning so
Yes.
hard into like their craft that in the pursuit of those things you like let them go,
Yes.
and like suddenly they look back at you, and
Yeah.
they're like they're unrecognizable.
Right. Versus
It's
what we have
un
now, which
versus
is
what we
like we're
have
gonna
right
hold on
now.
to you the whole
World the
time.
whole time,
Mhm.
and you're gonna go from like A to B to C to
Which means you can
Z,
never bike faster than he
which
can
is
run.
exactly, and to be convinced that that's all that life and experience
Yeah. Yeah.
is like um these mazes, these
Yeah.
rat races, and like I'm gonna just sell you how to get from being released by the scientist to get to the
Yes.
cheese at the end. And it's like, what if I told you that like, you're a little like lab rat, and like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
start fucking running and
Yeah.
pedaling so hard that like the walls melt,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
And now you're fucking skiing.
Yeah.
And now there's like slipstreams and wind
Yeah.
tunnels that are forming around you. Now the maze and the labyrinth actually bends towards you.
Yeah.
And that is like the thing that you want to be able to get across to this new generation, because explicitly and specifically this is something that is very near and dear to yours and I
Mhm.
heart, our hearts, is that so much of the programming and the messaging of what we grew up in was not like that at all. We
Right.
were always uh put into institutions where it's like you bowl with guided
Yes, there's a begin
lanes.
like there's a
Yeah.
top and a bottom. It's well, like the American Dream's a perfect example of this, right? Like
Yes.
if you raise an entire generation on the idea that this is the starting point and this is the end point, and most people who are successful hit the end point at 45,
Yeah.
well then you retire.
Yeah.
Then winning is staying there for
Yes.
as and
Yes.
getting there as early as possible. And it's what you said about like this idea of the hierarchy, like you think of like a Hormozy figure, right? Which is somebody who is like my generation. That's the closest thing that they could grasp to like a Renaissance figure,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah. Yeah.
Renaissance
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
right? But it's like if Hormozy was around in Renaissance times, he would be the top of the merchant class. Like he would be a hyper
Exactly.
successful merchant,
Yeah. He'd be
but
like a Medici.
right, but there's fucking 9,000 because the guys above him are just as good at like he's specialized where these guys they're not generalists, they're just Renaissance men. So they also understand this and they also understand this. And Naval has such this great quote that's like specialization is for insects. Like if you're looking
Mm.
at Hormozy, the only thing that you can deduce from that is success is equal to hyper specialization and mastery in this one domain and obsession over it, period. Where for me, it's like that is just the prerequisite And like you should only focus on the 20% for 20% of your life and the 80% for the rest of 80% of your life. So like get to the 20% and then fucking leave, man. Then sell the company. What are you
Yeah.
doing? It makes no
Yeah.
hormone. Like go fucking sell it for 200 mil
Yeah.
and then go do
And
like
let's fucking unclip,
right,
man. You know,
right,
and then glide,
run,
and then
go.
yeah, go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like seeing. You ever see those videos of, like wild horses?
Yeah.
Bro, just like full tilt sprint, just
Yeah.
full tilt sprint.
Yeah.
It's important, man. But I think you make such a great point. I think it starts. This is another kind of core thesis we never are able to fully articulate, but it's like an underlining message of ours on um, the importance of leadership and like the permission that society
Yeah.
needs from leaders. Like, you, we always say like shining a beacon in the sky, right? Like whenever I help some people, like whenever I help people, I've been fortunate to be in a position where I've like really helped people. You have as well, like through our ventures and different ventures, like. And first off, there's no better feeling than that. Knowing there's like a resume of people who, if they got an Oscar tomorrow, like you'd be in the speech,
Yeah.
which is
Beautiful.
like
Yeah,
one
awesome.
of
Fucking
right,
awesome. Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
I like to think is a big component of um this like info space. That's like the white pill of it. Ben Bader's, rest in peace, his girlfriend made a like memorial video a few days ago, and one of the main things she said was like, I used to get so mad at him because he was always on his phone, but he was never working. He was always checking in on his students. Like that was his
Yeah.
main thing. Like he was
Mm.
always, and you're the same. You're just always in that fucking Discord, man. But
Yeah.
if I think back to those like case studies, you could say of the people I've helped, like all I really ever did was give them permission. All I ever did was because that was for me everything I ever. When I speak on someone like an Alan Sultanich, for example, who like I never met personally, but was this kind of like disconnected mentor who I like learned a lot from through just consuming his stuff. Yes, there was a lot of specific like angles and tactics, but the main thing was just like permission. He was like, no, you can just go do this. Like you can launch your own offer. You can just fucking hand Zuckerberg $1 and he'll give you
Yeah.
$1.75 back. It's
Yep.
just this permission. You break down this wall. You see a fucking 19-year-old making 100K a month with his agency. The real helpful thing there is like being a college kid and being like, that's possible. Like that's like it's
Mm-hmm.
permission. If I've done it, you've done it. And there's also what we talk about, this like sacrificial nature that comes from what we're doing. Like we'll walk through the fire for you just to show you that like it won't burn you that bad. Like
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
it's not that we want it. It's just like, hey man, we did it, and throw some
Not
polysport
to
on it back on
brag,
the horse.
but
Right.
literally, yeah, to
Exactly.
your exact point,
Exactly.
just be like, you had it in you all along.
Yes.
And
That's
you might
that's all
even
we're
be
doing.
fucking better than me at
They
walking on
will.
these
It's just
coals, you know? Yeah.
that's the point, man. Every time, again, I don't even want to say like not to toot my own horn. It's just, but every time I'm on a call with like an older figure in the space, and that sort of like, so much for your age or whatever that sort of conversation goes, for like really great entrepreneurs, especially that like have a good head on their shoulders. There's not jealousy, but there also isn't like somebody who's been doing exactly what if you look at somebody like a Johan, for example, who's like successful in sales, there's no jealousy there. He's been doing it for 6 years, right? You just go like, well, if I did it for 6 years, I think I could be at least where he is.
Natural consequence.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always that on the inverse whenever I'm on these older guys. It's not like, oh man, I wish I started when I was, 20. But it's just like, oh, they're just like happy for me that somebody gave me that permission earlier. And they were like, man, I was like 28 before I even realized I could do this. And like, it's crazy for you to do that thing. It's like, that's where the true transformation comes from. And I think one of the main guiding principles of our thing was like, we had to give ourselves that permission.
Yeah.
And that's walking through the fire. Like, that's what we want to avoid. It's like
Yes.
all that we want to do is be like, I would never wish upon anybody just the fucking hours spent just sitting there looking for it. And like
to get out.
There's no glory in this, like nobody's coming to save you. Because first off, you're already saved, so incorrect. But like we talk about this all the time, like we're in the game. Oh,
What? You can't even, man. I'm done.
oh.
I'm done. Leave me be. You and your 20%. In what world?
Oh fuck. Oh my god. That's incredible. What a divine sign.
What a life.
Oh shit. Oh, I laughed so hard I gotta pee. I'll be right back.
Do it. Do it, run it.